when we look and scroll through social media, there's this kind of phenomenon that happens where we have the perception that we're really connected to all of these different parts and pieces, but it's really just a menu. If we really want to create connection, we got to be out there in the world and meeting other people and being in organizations or containers or social settings where we have this engagement from human to human that's not just at surface level, but at a level where we feel supported and we feel like we are supporting other people. Hello, beautiful guests. Welcome back to another episode of Embodied Relating with Brady Mac. I'm, of course, your host, Brady Mac. And in today's episode, I want to dive into the importance of having good man friends. Now, there's this really common thing that happens for a lot of adults, and especially men adults. And it's that over time, they lose connection with their good man friends. And maybe it starts out because they've moved cities, or maybe they used to play a sport, or maybe it's that they've actually outgrown their friends. They're tired of maybe drinking and talking about the same conversations every weekend. And so they've kind of lost touch from these core friends that they either grew up with or were in some sort of container with, playing sports or going to school, or maybe even working. Maybe you've experienced this yourself through the 2020 fiasco that we all went through, where instead of in the office, there's more working from home. And on some level, I think everyone can relate to growing older and outgrowing or changing friend circles. And what becomes increasingly more difficult as you get older is to make good friends. And not that it's inherently difficult for humans, but rather we just seem to have the tendency to be in less organized containers, right? Less school, less groups. Maybe life gets a little bit more busy with kids or with work or with, your partner, or you get into this habit and routine of spending more time alone or scrolling through the phone or watching another episode of Netflix, whatever. For whatever reason, there is less containers for friendship and for making new friends, typically. Now, it's not a life sentence, it's not a definitely true thing, but what is true is that as we get older, we start to be less malleable, meaning less plastic or less curious. And there's good reason for that in the neuroscience. It's because when we get older, we become a little bit more habitual, meaning we know what works. We have some life experience to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. This is what works for me, this is what doesn't work for me. And so we can gain a lot of clarity as adults on what it is that we really like. Now, as we're kids, we want to have more malleability, right? More neural plasticity within our brain, the ability to wire new neurons, new pathways, and be curious about the world, figure out what works. And that's why up until about 30, although that number varies, we're quite plastic, right? A lot of people spend a lot of time in their 20s exploring all these new things and exploring life, and then in their 30s tend to be a little bit more grounded, a little bit more settled, and start to understand themselves and the way that the world works a little bit more. So there's less need for the malleability and the curiosity and the plasticity. Now, the problem with that is if you get to your 30s and you've lost some of these social circles or organizations that you've experienced as you were growing up just by default, by being put into them, well, then you can start to develop these habits in your 30s where you become kind of isolated or a little bit lonely. And if that's the case, then that will likely, unless anything's done about it, continue in your 40s and your 50s and your 60s and so on, and it can turn out to be a pretty lonely life. Now, again, like this and like everything, nothing's a life sentence, right? If something doesn't work in our life, we can come from an empowered context and decide what it is that we'd like to do about it. Life isn't just happening to us, right? Life is happening for us, and for it to happen for us, we have to be a participant in life. And we have to be a participant in an empowered way to know and acknowledge that, yes, we become more hardwired once we're over the age of 30, but we're not hardwired forever. In fact, modern neuroscience talks more about the brain being live wired. It's continuously learning all throughout life. And so we have the ability to change our circumstance. And I've said this before, I truly believe that consciousness is our ability to alter our environment around us and then have the environment alter us. So we're in this symbiotic relationship with our environments. And when you think about a lot of more primal animals with a less developed brain and prefrontal cortex, they're kind of inhabiting the environment around them, and they're just living with the environment that they're given. But us as humans, we have this higher level of consciousness where we actually have the ability to make changes to our environment in a really dramatic way. Really dramatic way. So we are the empowered ones. We are the consciousness of this planet that has the ability to choose. When something doesn't work, we have the ability to change that. And so if you're someone who is in that scenario of noticing that there's, less social interaction in my life, I'm spending a few more nights scrolling through social media or watching another Netflix episode, and I'm not really feeling fulfillment from that, it's up to you to make a change. Now, I get it. Things like social media are really formed to be, there's trillions of dollars being put into this industry that is playing with our dopamine system and really good at keeping us hooked onto it. So we have to really push back against that somehow to come back to what is inherently healthy for all humans, which is to be together and to really be connected and to notice the parts of us that might be mistaking the menu for the meal. It's like when you look at a picture of a menu, you can get an idea of how something might taste, but you can't actually bite into it. When we look and scroll through social media, there's this kind of phenomenon that happens where we have the perception that we're really connected to all of these different parts and pieces, but it's really just a menu. If we really want to create connection, we got to be out there in the world and meeting other people and being in organizations or containers or social settings where we have this engagement from human to human that's not just at surface level, but at a level where we feel supported and we feel like we are supporting other people. So I share all of this because there's one really special program that I've put together, and this is just for men. Women, your time will come, and there are many of women's circles out there and opportunities for you to find the women and people in your life that really support you. And I sincerely think it's really important for women to also have an exclusive container that's just supported by women, and for men to have an exclusive container where they're just supported by men. And so find that out there. And for the men, what I recommend is I've created, because I've spent so much time in men's work and coaching men and being coached by men and in these containers that are only men, there's something that happens similar to if you've ever been in a men's circle or you've been on a sports team. You know that there's something about just men supporting other men that is intangible, and there's nothing like it anywhere else in the world. And this is why drinking and going to a bar has been so popularized and socially acceptable, because we need some sort of place where people can come together to engage, even if it's, unhealthy. Sometimes I actually think that going to a pub and having a couple of drinks with your buddies is probably healthier than staying home and isolating by yourself. Sometimes, of course, you have to look at your development and your relationship with that alcohol or that substance that you're consuming. But that's another story for another time. As I've talked about previously on the podcast, my own sobriety journey, which feels really great for me. But what I've noticed is that those containers can be kind of tougher to make your way into, or sometimes maybe you even feel pressured to drink just to fit in, just to be allowed into that circle, just to have someone to be with. Now, men's containers are great, and men's work is accessible in many different places. There's plenty of places you can find it, but one place that I have invented and created is Good Man Friends. And this is an online, zero cost, zero barrier to entry way to make good man friends and join a men's circle. And so what actually ends up happening is, with the click of a button, the whole DNA of the not-for-profit organization called Good Man Friends is you click a button and you make a good man friend. It's that easy. And so the idea is you click a button, you jump onto our online platform, and instantly you'll have access to our network of men, which is ever growing and ever amazing. Like, they are always surprising me with how connected and how supportive and how just great it is just to have this place where it's just a group of guys online, but not just your average group of guys that are, they're shit talking. It's a group of guys that are there that are committed to supporting each other. So you're having a bad week, put it in the group, and some guys will reach out for support or acknowledgement or maybe some advice or maybe some suggestions. You're having a big week, you're having a great week. Maybe you just got a raise, or you asked out that cute barista that you've been thinking about asking out. You want to be able to share that and celebrate it with the world. You want to share it with your community and with people and with friends and with guys that understand and have your back. And so you can share the wins in that group, and then they support you. But this isn't just, typing online or like an online forum. We actually have virtual house parties that we host every single weekend. So no matter where you are in the world, you can come, jump on a call, and hang out with us. And they're called virtual house parties, but I'll let you in on a little secret. These are not your average house parties. These house parties are disguised as house parties, but really what they are is deep inner work and men's work. And it's a men's circle where you have the opportunity to connect and go a little bit deeper, practice some social skills, but also practice things like accountability, keeping to your word, knowing that when you say you're going to do something, that you actually follow up and do it, right? It's so easy to make accountabilities to ourselves. New Year's just happened, lots of people have made their New Year's resolution. Have you actually followed up on that? Well, chances are, if you have kept it to yourself, statistically speaking, there's a low probability that you've continued to stick to it. But if you've said it to someone else and you have some sort of accountability, some person or group of people saying, hey, you said you would do this thing and now we're watching you not do it. What the heck, right? So accountability is a really big part of joining these, weekly meetings, these virtual house parties that we host. If you say you're going to do something, the guys on there, you bet your ass, will hold you accountable. And when you don't show up to doing what you say you will do, well, then you'll have to sit with the difficulty of knowing that these guys are going to hold you to the fire, right? And so that's one element of being in a men's group, is this element of fire, is moving forward, of doing the things that you'll say you'll do, being in integrity, and going after your dreams, celebrating your wins. The other side to it, so fire being one side, the other side to men's work is love. And so there is an element of deep support that's available in these containers, where when you think about life in general, we all go through these different periods of difficulty, whether you're going through a breakup or some financial stress, or your goldfish just died, or you're feeling on the rocks with your partner, whatever it is. When you're going through something difficult, oftentimes what makes it more difficult is the perception that you are in it alone, and that no one else on earth has ever experienced what you're experiencing. We get really caught up in my problem, me. It's a huge problem. The world's going to stop if I don't solve this problem. But the reality is many other people have probably experienced the exact same or very similar situation that you've been through. And being able to share that with a group of people creates this hive mind, or this mastermind, where it's not just your mind trying to problem solve, but it's a group of people that are developing this groupthink technique where we all support and understand and solve the problem that you might be going through. And for me, this has been the most valuable experience that I've ever had, is having other people support the things that I deem unsupportable or I deem unsolvable. Of course, your brothers are going to want to support you. Of course, they're going to want to help carry the load, right? Many hands make for light work. And beyond that, you've got the fire and you've got the love quality. Beyond that, you've got this network. You've got this network of awesome guys that are in the work themselves, so you know that you can trust them. You know that they're into personal development. You know that there's a network of guys out there that are having your back, and that you could meet, and maybe this guy is in your city, or maybe you stay in touch online, and it ends up becoming your best friend for the rest of your life. You think about when you're 50, 60, 70, and you still know that this guy's got your back and you've got his back. Maybe in this network you meet your next business partner, that business that you've always thought you want to do but you haven't quite taken the steps yet, or the next project that you've considered creating, the podcast that you've been thinking about building and launching. Maybe you meet your partner in that, someone who is either a co-host of that podcast or that project or that business, or maybe someone who is in the film and audio industry that can support you in creating that dream. No matter what it is that you're out to achieve in the world, you can do it faster and more efficiently when you allow for people to support you. And that's what this whole thing is all about. Good Man Friends is a not-for-profit organization that is zero cost, zero barrier to entry, one-click stop to make a good man friend. If you want to check it out, check the link in the bio, or you can find us online. We're good.man.friends on Instagram. And that might actually not be true. It might be good_man_friends on Instagram. And actually, I'm very certain that it's the latter. So underscores underneath good man friends. You can find us there. That'll give you a link and access to all of our online platform, the one-click stop. You can find out what we're about. We've got some videos on there. You can connect with the community, and it's really simple. Just look on the left side. You'll see number 1, 2, and 3. Follow those 3 simple steps, and I hope sincerely to see you at a virtual house party sometime soon. Thank you so much for being here, and I want to know from you before this podcast, and drop in the comments or in the review section what it is for you that makes a good man friend. Or if you're a woman, what makes a good friend? Maybe a good woman friend, or just a good friend in general. Drop it in the comment section below and let me know what makes a good friend. Of course, remember to subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, and thank you so much for being here. I so look forward to seeing you in the next video or next audio podcast version next week. This is me, over and out for now. Thank you, thank you, thank you.